A tenant takes on a ruthless landlord and wins big. A spreadsheet mastermind outsmarts her own boss. A brilliant expense claim funds a dream car. And finally, a stubborn park goer learns the hard way that you should listen to good advice. Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under the @Karma Stories podcast handle. Alright, on to the stories, let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Gen X75. Property management tells me not to fix anything. Okay. Back in the 2008 housing crisis, I did some work on the side for a customer's computer system. We got talking, and he had a cheap 1-bedroom duplex for rent that was too good to be true. It was a detached garage converted to a 1-bedroom little apartment, and it was as plain and basic as they come. The actual house was being rented out, and he was charging the full amount priced for the area, which was high. So the little garage conversion was pure profit for the landlord. I signed a lease for a fixed price that was almost half of what the going rate was for 1-bedroom apartments in the area. It was no frills, plain as can be, with the cheapest appliances and amenities possible. Light fixtures from the early 80s, cheapest faucets and countertops money could buy, you get the visual. The elderly landlord and I had an arrangement. I could fix it up so long as I could keep the rent low, and he would allow me to pay for the remaining balance on upgrades if or when things broke. Years go by, and I'm still in this 1-bedroom garage conversion and making progress on updating the features. Kitchen faucet is gone, new fancy sprayer head faucet with a bar-style glass cleaner installed. Old toilet replaced with a water-saving tank and bidet installed. 80s lights are gone, LED smart home fixtures installed. Around 7 to 8 years go by and my rent is still half of the normal going rate for the area, and my landlord is happy with our arrangement. Sadly, he has a heart attack and surgery saves his life. He is no longer able to maintain his active lifestyle and hands the reins of being a landlord to a property management company. This company is as shady and money hungry as they come. They get a percentage of the monthly rent for their role in taking over the landlord's duties. They immediately hate me and my rental agreement from the start. The month they take over, my rent goes up the maximum limit of 10% plus 5% the cost of living increase for 1 year. I'm not happy with this, as this is a significant bump in my costs. I suck it up, but as a silent protest, I stopped making upgrades to the house that first year. 12 months later exactly, I get a notification that my rent will increase another 10% plus 5% cost of living increase. This is yet another blow to my finances, but I can't really complain as my rent is still well below the average cost for the area. Another 12 months and another 10% plus 5% cost of living, followed by another the following year. This whole time, I had been saving a good portion of my paychecks as a down payment for a house. But these rent hikes were hurting my ability to set aside money for this purpose. My landlord was not happy with the property management company he hired, but couldn't get out of his contract because they were doing maintenance and facility repairs like clockwork. COVID hit, and I had been in this place for 12 years by this point. My rent was still under the average for the area, but not by much. Seeing as this was now just a crappy 1-bedroom apartment, I was looking for houses to buy to get me out of this rent gouging arrangement I was in. Right at the peak of the COVID scare in 2020, a pipe burst in the kitchen and floods the floors, ruining the crappy cabinets, the carpets, and the furniture I had nearby. I had renter's insurance that covered most of the costs to what I had lost. Not the nicest furniture, but my couch was a total loss. My desk, entertainment center, and my speakers were severely damaged. In comes property management to assess the repairs and gut out the damaged wood and carpets. I offer to pay for the upgraded wood and countertops, as well as requested hardwood floors. Nope, they deny my request. I offered to do the work myself as I'm fairly handy. Again denied with an actual written letter stating I'm not to do any work or maintenance on the apartment. I contact my landlord, who has his hands tied because this was the arrangement we had. I'm at a loss of what to do because this property management company is not setting me up with a temporary place to live, doing all the work while I'm working from home to watch my possessions. There is a literal door-sized hole in my wall as they spend 2 weeks fixing all the damage. They throw out my upgraded faucet, which was undamaged and worked perfectly fine, the upgraded sink, the light fixtures, the tile work I had done, the bathroom faucet, which wasn't even part of the floor damage. They then remove an outlet originally part of the apartment to save on costs. I was pissed at them and complained via letters, via phone calls, and talking to the maintenance supervisor. It took 2 full months to do all the repairs, and at the end, they sent me a notice that my rent was going up due to some loophole in the neglect the apartment was in and not reported. I was done with this BS, and I pooled my resources, called in all the favors I could, and found the house I wanted. I gave 30 days notice to leave at the end of my lease, along with an invoice of all the repairs I made to the apartment over the 12 years I was there. I attached a copy of my original lease agreement, a copy of all photos I took of before and after repairs I made, a bill of the cost, and a request of refund of the past 6 months of additional rent hike due to neglect like they stated in the letter. I had a running tally with all the receipts, work performed, and the cost of not being allowed to live in a motel during the work being performed to over $9,700. At the same time, I submitted all this to the courts as I knew they would contest all of it. My landlord was on my side during the court hearing, giving testimony he in fact allowed me in the rental lease agreement that I could do my own repairs. I won within 4 hours and was awarded $4,700. The judge removed all the billable hours I included. Judge was harsh to the lawyer for the property management, saying his client must obey the law and put a tenant up for housing during construction. Nearly 4 years later, I finally got my lump sum, including penalties and late fees, which totaled up to $7,500. Sadly, my old landlord passed away, and his properties passed to his son, who immediately fired the property management company sometime early last year. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Nev Bartos. It says, "That sucks that you had to go through all of that, but well done on reaming them back. Did they learn a lesson? Probably not. It's awesome the landlord was on your side too." OP responded and said, "I have no idea what happened at the end, but their lawyers fought me for 1 year until I was fed up and hired my own attorney. Sadly, my expenses for his services were $3,000 for him doing nothing but correspondence back and forth. Never even saw the actual guy in person, just a few Zoom meetings, but we were fighting to get them to pay lawyer expenses now. I'll see nothing of it if he wins, but might get reimbursed the $3,000. The thing I find interesting in all of this was that the landlord said that he couldn't get out of the contract with the property management company, but once the landlord died and everything passed on to the son, he was able to fire that company immediately. That's interesting. I don't think this landlord was as good a person as OP makes him out to be. I mean, he went along with all of the rent increases too, right? He never fought back for OP in that case. I don't know about this guy." This story comes to us from Defiant Lion 8183. "Delete it? You sure? Okay." So I am a fiend for Excel spreadsheets. Absolutely love them, and even bought an extra wide monitor for home so I can see them in all their glory. My boss keeps telling me that she's an advanced Excel user. She can run macros, she can do pivot tables, she knows formulas. Not once have I seen her create or manipulate a spreadsheet in the 6 months I've worked for her. So I had a template on our Teams chat that we used every week. It was automated to within an inch of its life to tell us about the company's health. We've been using it for the last 4 months after I was given approval by the boss to make it live. Gave her a tutorial and everything. This was for the admins to all see it, and I'd only need to update the raw data once a week instead of sending it manually to whoever wanted it on a given day, up to 4 times a day usually. Took about 6 hours of work a week having it set up like that. Well, the boss told me to take it down because a different department who hadn't seen it was worried about personal data when one of the admins told them about it. There isn't anything like that in there, and anything that isn't open access is password hidden anyway. Our IT team has to be formally requested to add a new member to our Teams chat. The spreadsheet is password protected, the tabs are password protected, and the whole company is locked down hard anyway. So boss orders me to take it down and delete it, run a fresh one for anyone who wants it. So I explained there wasn't anything in it that was personal or private data, but got told nope, delete it. Tried to explain we use it amongst the admins every day, and it has all these built-in features and tables, etc. Nope, delete it. So I did. The fallout? Read on. Q today, boss says to me her big boss meeting is presenting figures to the executives tomorrow. She starts quoting figures that are wildly out from the true numbers. I question where they came from, and she shows me a Frankenstein report that is saying the exact opposite of what she thought. Run by someone not even in our department. I tell her the accurate grand total and show her how I got there with a simple table and some screenshots I had of the original shared spreadsheet. She asks for access, and I tell her it's been deleted. I explained why, and even showed the meeting notes where she had approved its use after viewing it. She denies any knowledge of it, but wants it back. I said it would take me 2 to 3 days to make it again due to my workload increases. I saved a copy of the template, but no way am I telling her that. This will give me breathing room to get the backlog out of my queue while she thinks I'm working on it. Let her sweat through that executive meeting knowing every figure is wrong. No one's saving her butt in this team anymore. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Jeswell. It says, "Luckily, we have a team in our organization dedicated to information management. If this happened to me, I'd state that I'd get it officially checked to see if it could continue to be used. So much easier when you can outsource verification. Why do you think consultants play such a big role in providing advice?" OP responded and said, "It was that team who questioned it, and I did verify with later in that day. Unfortunately, my boss is the highest rank in our depot, so her rule is law, unless an executive rocks up." This just goes back to what we say after a lot of these stories. OP, you needed documentation from this person saying exactly what it was that they were asking you to do when they told you to delete that spreadsheet. Even asking them to put it in writing can make them think about what they're doing. Although a lot of bosses aren't really as smart as they think they are, so that probably wouldn't go anywhere anyway. This story comes to us from Diligent Comfort 191. Train fare on expenses. This happened a long time ago in a different century. I was working for a large multinational firm with multiple sites in the UK. I was usually based in, let's say, York, but was sent on a 6-month secondment to head office in London. Everything was on expenses, the hotels during the week, evening meals, and particularly rail transport to and from London on Monday mornings and Friday evenings. At this time, I was living in digs in York, which were charged by the nights I actually slept there. So most weekends, it saved me cash to go back home and stay at the parents in Reading, relatively close to London compared to York. As I was in Reading almost every weekend, I asked if I could travel from there direct to the London office, instead of driving all the way from Reading to York, just to catch the darn train back all the way down to London, and do the reverse on Fridays. Not unreasonably, this was agreed to by my line manager. All was fine for the first few weeks until it was discovered by finance that another colleague on the secondment had been doing similar to me, but claiming for rail travel to London from her parents' house in Edinburgh, a lot further from London than York. There was a bit of a stink about the company subsidizing her travel home to Scotland at weekends, and as a result, an edict was issued that said only rail travel claims for York to London would be signed off on in the future. I spoke to my line manager about my circumstances, and he referred me direct to finance. I think he knew what was coming and didn't want to be implicated. I spoke to a senior manager in finance and began to explain my circumstances, but he just cut me off and said, in a tone that would brook no dissension, that only claims from York and London would be signed off. No exceptions would be made. As a callow youth, I got the message, and thereafter submitted weekly expense claims for flexible return rail tickets from York to London for almost 5 months, whilst actually traveling from Reading to London. I made a surprising amount of money from this, and combined with not needing to pay for digs and meals, I saved enough to buy a nice second-hand TVR after the secondment was over. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called the Sad Clarinet. It says, "Sounds more like fraud than malicious compliance. The difference here is that had you been discovered, you'd have lost your job and may well have ended up in court." OP responded and said, "The initial instruction saying we could only claim for York London was sent as a memo. I attempted to question the logic of it twice and got firmly put back in my box by finance. My manager who signed off on my expenses prior to them going to finance knew very well what the situation was, as he was on the secondment with me. As far as I was concerned, finance had changed the travel rules for the secondment to a fixed allowance. You know, I say if you have a chance to get more money out of the incompetence of management in a large company, then by all means, go for it. Just keep in mind, this is not legal advice." It really sounds like one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing in this company, which leads me back to the comment I made on the last story, where the managers really think they're smart, but they're really not. This story comes to us from Dr. Horrible himself. "Don't tell you where you can't walk? Okay." Happened this morning when walking my dog at the municipal park. It has a skate park, playground, tennis club, softball fields, and to note, a disc golf course. With disc golf, some of the holes tee off and end near the footpaths that take you around the park. While there are signs in the general area that serve as a warning, people are usually aware of the disc golfers. Anyways, I'm walking my dog and I see a group of golfers playing through, and they're throwing at a hole, that cage thing, that's about 20 feet from the path. I stop just in case anyone overthrows. Also, it's fun to watch. I'm standing there, and some grumpy old man is walking from the pickleball courts at the tennis club to the parking lot. He has to walk up the path that I stopped at. I try to tell him, "Sir, you might want to hold on. There's a group of..." He immediately cuts me off with, "Out of my way! Don't tell me where I can walk!" and trudges through without looking at his surroundings. I just look at him as one of the discs sails along and connects with the side of his face, and clocks him off his feet onto the wet grass. I see the coast is clear now and make my way to the parking lot. He's dazed and now angry and yells at me, "Why didn't you warn me?" I looked at him and replied, "You told me not to tell you where to walk," then proceeded on my way as he tried to get up and get his bearings while still cursing at me because all of that was my fault, apparently. I think OP should advocate for whoever threw that disc to have at least one shot taken off of their score, just for dealing out some well-needed karma. I'm not sure if that old guy was entitled or just plain dumb, but one thing you have to remember is you can't fix stupid. But duct tape can muffle the noise. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. Also, if you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.